Hello YouTube, and welcome back to World of Warships with Wadres again, and today I am going to be doing a brief overview of the newly released, well, I guess I should say pre-released, Acosta, Icarus, Jervis, and Lightning, the up-and-coming tech line Russian or Royal Navy destroyers. And they are going to be rather interesting ships, I will say. I am going to kind of give a quick breakdown of their stats, starting with the Acosta, which has 11,200 hit points. Destroyer armor is pretty much standard across the board. She does have a main battery of 4 120mm cannons with an 11.1 kilometer range, and her shells do 1,700 to 2,100 damage depending on your shell type. Her torpedo tubes, she has 2 quad torpedo launchers with a 6-kilometer range, and they do roughly 12,000 damage, and they also are relatively quick at 59 knots. For her AA, it may as well not even be there, at an AA rating of 8, and she only really has a small handful of AA guns anyway. For her maneuverability, she makes 35 knots with a 500-meter turning circle, and she has a 2.9 rudder shift. Also, for her detection range, she has a 6.6 kilometer detection range by sea, 3.2 by air, and a 2.4 kilometer detection range in smoke. I am also going to quickly say that I am running these ships with basically standard destroyer upgrades for their upgrade modules, which means main armaments mod 1, propulsion mod 1, and aiming systems mod 1. The third slot really doesn't do much good to augment anything else because the AA ratings are kind of lousy, and overall just getting better accuracy into the main battery guns definitely helps. Because these are currently premium ships in-game due to the fact that they are pre-releases of Techline ships, I am capable of accessing their fully upgraded modules, so all of these are running with the B hulls and their upgrade rangefinder modules. So that is going to kind of affect their stats just a little bit. But these are going to be their maxed out stats once you unlock them in the tech tree fully and just kind of run with them. The one thing I will say about the Acosta, I've only taken her into battle once, and the one thing that I really noticed was that the smoke generator on these destroyers really kind of, it is very situational and very, very defensive, as well, the warships would love to have them be. They are quote-unquote defensive role destroyers. They have a 10-second action time with a 40-second dissipation and a 70-second reload. So you, between the last puff of smoke dispersing and the actual reload of the module coming back online, you have about a 30-second gap. So you're not exactly able to sit and camp in smoke for 2 or 3 minutes and just sit there shelling anything from long range. And on top of that, you're just not really able to rely on your smoke to cover you for very long or keep you very well concealed. It is, again, primarily defensive. It is to pop smoke so that you can get out of dodge if you happen to be spotted early on, and otherwise just kind of wanting to make sure that, I guess it's a way of addressing the camping meta that is in-game right now. Moving on to the Icarus, she does have a survivability of 12,100 hit points. Again, pretty much standard destroyer armor. Her artillery is, again, 4 120mm cannons with an 11.6 range. Again, she is fully upgraded. Her torpedoes, again, her damage rating is 1,700 to 2,100 depending on your shell type. For her torpedo tubes, she does have 2 quintuple launchers now with a 120-second reload, and these do roughly 16,000 damage per hit, and they have a range of 7 kilometers. Also, they have a 59-knot speed, same as the torpedoes in the Acosta, and overall they are definitely usable. And the one thing that I want to note here is that because these are the Royal Navy destroyers, their primary quirk is that they are capable of single launching their torpedo tubes. And, I mean, having a lot of them is definitely an added bonus, but here's the other thing. Your launchers don't actually reload until after all of the torpedoes in the launcher have been fired. So if you have a quintuple launcher and you fire off 4 torpedoes, the entire launcher will not reload until after you have fired off that last torpedo. Now, it does give you a lot of flexibility in that you don't have to fire all of your torpedoes in a single salvo on the target, but if you are trying to, I guess I could say, sneak up and ambush a single target, you kind of want to keep that in mind, because the last thing you want is a single torpedo sitting in a launcher, and yeah, it can be bad. AA rating, again, pretty much non-existent. Maneuverability, she bumps up a little bit to 35.5 knots, 540 meter turning circle, and she does have a 2.4 second rudder shift. And also for her concealment, she gets not entirely sure what I was doing here anymore. This is the downside of doing my recordings and my voiceover separately. I kind of forget what I was doing at some points for the actual video commentary, what I was thinking of doing. But her concealment is pretty much, it's somewhere between the Acosta and the Jervis. It's not spectacular, but it's definitely respectable. Overall, these aren't exactly bad ships. And the one thing that I do have to say, for the Icarus and the Acosta, I don't think all of their turrets are capable of 360 rotation. And that, I think, is one of the big catches. I see here now I'm talking about concealment. Like I said, I forget what I'm doing with these videos sometimes. But coming back to the turret rotation, I do not believe that the Icarus and the Acosta have 360-degree turret rotation, which can be a little bit of a tricky thing, just because, at least at this point, you're not able to keep all of your guns on target at all times. And that for destroyers that are given quote-unquote defensive roles, that really can be something of a detriment, because you want to be able to skirt your targets, you want to be able to skirt away while maneuvering, and if your guns have to traverse, it really just kind of takes away from your ability to keep them under fire. Okay, on to the Jervis, and I've already lost track of what I was... I did backtrack to the Acosta. Talking about her main guns, she does have a little bit more health on the Jervis. What the hell am I doing here? I think I was comparing a couple of things with the Jervis and the Lightning. I think I was actually talking a little bit more about the 180-degree rotation on the... the 360-degree rotation on the turrets for these ships. Okay. Yeah, Jervis has 14,300 hit points. Again, this destroyer armored is standard. She has now 3 double 120mm turrets. So she has 6 guns as opposed to the 4 of the Icarus and the Acosta, and they have a 12.1 kilometer range. And the nice thing is, when you look at this ship, at least 2 of her turrets do have 360-degree rotation, which means, unlike the previous Acosta and the Icarus, they are capable of keeping at least 2 of the guns, or 2 of the turrets, on target at any given time. The third turret still has to traverse, but even having 4 guns constantly on target is a major, major bonus. It helps quite substantially, especially, again, in a destroyer that is supposed to be holding a defensive role. Her AA rating is slightly better. She does have an AA rating of 13, but again, at this point I think it can be pretty much said that these destroyers are not really meant for knocking down aircraft. They are meant to handle ships. Her torpedoes, she is back to still on quintuple launchers with a 120-second reload, 7-kilometer range, and I mean the damage hasn't really changed too much. Overall, her armament really isn't too much different from that of the Icarus. For her maneuverability, however, she is slightly faster. She makes 36 knots. She has a 590 meter turning circle radius and a 2.8 second rudder shift. As far as her concealment, I am now running this ship because she is a higher tier. She is running with the rudder shift mod as well to get her maneuverability even better. For concealment, she has a 7 kilometer surface detect, a 3.7 air detect, and a 2.6 kilometer detection range in smoke. And, I mean, this is a ship that I did accidentally take into Operation Dynamo at one point for my first battle in her, and I do have to say that she performs rather well. Coming up to the Lightning, we now have just shy of 16,000 hit points. Her artillery is also the relatively standard 120 millimeter turrets. Again, she now has two 120 millimeter turrets, and all three of these turrets are capable of 360-degree rotation, which means all three of these guns are capable of staying on target. She has two quadruple launchers now, which have a 96-second reload. They do 16,000 damage per torpedo, and they have an 8-kilometer range on those torpedoes, which is relatively fair. Her AA rating is slightly better. She has a AA rating of 25 over her predecessors, but again, you're still not relying too heavily on this AA. You're definitely wanting to, for your anti-air, you're definitely wanting to rely more on AA-heavy ships like cruisers, or even a small handful of the in-game battleships. Not to say that her guns can't do a little bit of damage, but it's definitely not something you're going to be relying on. I have definitely noticed that it is more viable to just turn off your AA armament to keep your concealment better when dealing with aircraft. Now, I am running this ship with the speed flag, so I am going to demount that real quick so that you can see that her base speed is 36 knots. She does have a 590 meter turning circle with a 3-second rudder shift, and this is running the rudder shift module. For her concealment, I do have the Concealment System Mod 1 on this ship, which does help out substantially. And this does drop her concealment down to 6.1 kilometer surface detect. She does have a 3.4 air detect range and a 2.5 kilometer main gun smoke bloom detection range. And of course, for the captain skills, I was running all of these ships initially with the Burt Dunkirk captain, which does have some modified skills. And I am running him with Last Stand, of course, which is pretty much bread and butter for destroyers, keeping them up and running. I do have Preventative Maintenance. I have his modified Jack of All Trades with its 10% reduction to cooldown of modules. And believe me, that definitely helps because it takes the cooldown of the smoke generator from 70 to 63 seconds. So there's really only a 23-second downtime in your actual smoke. And trust me, it helps. It helps a lot. Even just that 7-second difference can mean the difference between life and death for these ships. And of course, for other modifications, I am running with Smokescreen Expert, which, again, modified. The smokescreen radius is substantially larger. So, and I did mention that I took this guy in with the Jervis on the Operation Dynamo. And even though the smoke was short duration, the smokescreen radius bloom actually was able to cover the entire convoy in Operation Dynamo and keep them covered under air assault, which was an absolutely major bonus. It definitely helped despite the short duration, just because the smokescreen was that much larger. And of course I am also running with basic firing training, which these guns on this ship get full benefit at 120 millimeters, which means they have the reduced reload time, and overall they're definitely more effective. And as I upgrade this commander, I am going to go for Concealment Expert, drop down the detection range, and I'm probably also going to go for Demolition Expert. Just to get the fire chance of this ship up just a little bit more. And that's one of the other things about these little Royal Navy destroyers, is that they do have fairly high fire chance for destroyers because of their heavier HE shells. And, I mean, 8% on destroyer shells like the Acosta, the Icarus, the Jervis, that's nothing to shake a stick at. I do have flags on the Lightning, which get her up to a 10% fire chance, which for a destroyer is absolutely amazing. They can definitely set fires like it's nobody's business as far as destroyers are concerned. And overall, just kind of looking at these ships, these are nice, sleek, functional destroyers. They are very maneuverable, and that's one of the big things that you really kind of end up relying on, as well as the 360-degree turret rotation on, say, the Jervis and the Lightning. Just because as you're trying to kite away from targets, due to your defensive role, if you're trying to run away or maneuver away from a target, having 360-degree rotation, you can actually have all of your guns on target, or a fair number of your guns on target, constantly, which means you can actually keep your DPS up instead of having to wait for the front turrets to traverse a full 300, 280 degrees just to be able to be on target, which when you're maneuvering, that's going to constantly keep shifting. So you would basically never have your forward two turrets on target if you're maneuvering. It really, really does help being able to get these ships, keep these ships on target, and just because I've only played one match in a couple of these ships, I mean, I've done substantially better playing the Lightning because I've played several battles in the Lightning now. And I've kind of started getting used to the role. My initial impression of the Icarus, the Acosta, the Jervis weren't great, but I think that was more just because I only did one match. I wanted to see how they felt, how they operated, and to me, they were not appealing, at least at first, just because I probably wasn't playing them right. I was trying to play them very aggressively, and I will come out and say, they can be played aggressively. All four of these destroyers can be played rather aggressively. But when you're playing aggressive, you have to be careful, because again, you have that short duration smoke. You don't have an incredible length of time that you are concealed by your smoke. But they are definitely still very effective ships, and they can play both aggressively and defensively, so long as they are not put into a position where they are detected by radar or anything else. The last thing these ships really want to be running into is, say, a Sims or a Worcester or anything like that. But, I mean, as long as they are, say, capable of charging down a battleship without too much contention from anything else, they're definitely more than capable of being aggressive under the right circumstances. Really not quite so sure where else I was going to go with that. They are nice small ships, and they are definitely capable. I am going to do a quick review of the Gallant here, since I also just unlocked her. She is a Tier 6 Premium Royal Navy Destroyer. She is not a primary tech line, and I am running a hit with the Royal Navy, or the British Dasha version commander. Her survivability is pretty much on line with the Icarus. She does have pretty much right on, I believe, as far as her hit points, right on 12,000. Her artillery is the same as that of the Icarus. Her torpedoes are practically the same as the Icarus. I think she has the quad launchers instead of the quints. Her AA defense, she may as well not even have AA defense, honestly, at an AA rating of 2. It's like the only thing that you're going to actually manage if you kill an aircraft is if you happen to wipe away its last couple of hit points. It's really not. The you're better off just turning your AA guns off. Her maneuverability is pretty much standard in line with that of the Icarus, and her concealment is, again, not exactly bad either. And again, overall, she's not a bad ship. She's small, she's got relatively good detection, just like most of the other Royal Navy destroyers. And her smoke is... well, again, I'm not entirely sure where I was going with any of that. Anyway, overall, these destroyers are definitely decent ships. I think in the right hands, players can definitely have fun with them. They are a little bit gimmicky. They do require somebody who knows what they're doing with destroyers. They cannot be quite as aggressive as, say, your Benson, your Harugumo, your Akizuki, or even really your Japanese destroyers. You're definitely relying a lot more on your concealment to keep you protected, and your maneuverability to kind of keep you out of trouble if you find yourself in a tight spot. Overall, though, they are definitely very good, very functional destroyers, and I think the vast majority of the player base, once they get used to playing destroyers a little bit differently from what they've become used to in the current game, that they're definitely going to like them. Anyway, I should probably start letting you all go. For my next video, I am going to be taking these ships in battle so that you can all see for yourselves how they operate. But I think the other thing that I'm going to do with my next video is just kind of talk about myself a little, so you all can get to know me as a YouTuber and as a player just a little bit better. Anyway, I hope you all look forward to that, and I will catch you all later.